The enemy has a habit of attacking when you've almost won. The truth is, we all struggle with something. And if you're here, it's because you want to rid yourself of those struggles. What if I told you that things are going to get harder before they get easier? You're going to struggle with things and the things that you've struggled with in the past in order to get over them. When you are freeing yourself from your troubles, the enemy tends to attack more often in order to make you slip. And this can cause people to fall short when they're almost at the finish line. The enemy attacks when you've almost won. And when you find yourself in this situation, it's important to not only not give in, but to recognize that this is a good sign. When you struggle more than you normally do, it's a sign that you are getting closer to God. When you find yourself in these scenarios, you'll start to feel like you're unworthy, incapable, or like God isn't hearing you. And in these times, it's important to remember that God is still with you, that God hasn't gone anywhere. And as long as you remember that, you should make it through with no problem. Or maybe you currently find yourself in a situation where you're tired of waiting. Maybe you've asked God for something, and instead of answering, He told you to wait. These waiting periods are tests to see if you would choose God over your struggles. It's important that when you're in these waiting periods, to continue to trust in God, continue to put your faith in God, and just wait for God to just move throughout your life. It's in these waiting times that we either grow in our faith or take things into our own hands. And it's important that in those times you trust in God. You have to understand that God isn't making you wait to punish you. He's preparing you. What you are asking God for may require more discipline or maturity than you have right now. When you feel like God isn't listening, instead of giving in to your struggles, dive into your word more than you already have. Galatians 6 verse 9 says, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." So this brings up the question, how do you stand firm when you're under attack or when you're waiting for God to move in your life? For starters, you have to stay in prayer. The enemy wants to disconnect you from God. Prayer is a great way to stay connected to God and continue to hear His word. Understanding that God is always there for you and that just praying to God will make God aware of your struggles, and it'll allow Him to always have your back and look out for you. You also have to remind yourself of God's past faithfulness. God has never failed you before. You have to remind yourself of the times that God has delivered or been there from you and that He won't let you fall. Because there are times where we're going through things, and because we're going through these things, we forget that God has always had our back. And this happens to me too. Sometimes I could be going through something and I forget about all the times where God has helped me out, and it causes me to slip or causes me to do things that I know I shouldn't be. And that's because I haven't reminded myself of God and how He has helped me out in the past. Also, trust that God's timing is better than yours. If God says He'll do it, He will. Trust that God has perfect timing, that His timing is better than ours and better than ours ever will be. Trusting in God's timing means that you're not only willing to live for God, but you're willing to give your life to God. Doing all of these things will make us ready for the important things that God is preparing us for. It is important to remember this. Don't give in to the temptations of your struggles. In this waiting period, you have to remember that God will have your back, and you have to continue to trust in God.